Right, so please read this before you watch the video. So if you haven't read it and you're listening to this now, you did not follow directions, but that's okay. You can pause the video and read it. So in their first example, we can take out a 2. X squared doesn't have a coefficient of 1, but 2, 4, and 16 are all divisible by 2, so we can factor out the GCF of 2. So we get 2 times x squared plus 2x minus 8. Again, if you aren't very good with GCF, you can always distribute it back out to check. Then the trinomial in parentheses now has a leading coefficient of 1, so we can go right to the double bubble. We can plug in the x and x. Now we need to ask ourselves what multiplies to negative 8 and adds to positive 2. So factors of negative 8. The pair that adds to positive 2 is going to be negative 2 and positive 4. So we've got x minus 2, x plus 4, and we're done. However, our second example is a little different because there is no GCF, but that there's still a 2 in front of the x squared. So anytime we have a number that's not 1 as our leading coefficient, we have to use the box method. So it's just like our box method for multiplication, but we're going to go backwards. So we start by plugging in the first term into the first box and the last term into the last box. Now, this is where it changes a little bit because we don't just find what multiplies to the constant and adds to the middle term. We have to multiply these two together to get the magic number. So we're looking for a number that multiplies to positive 2 and adds to positive 3. So those factors are 1 and 2, negative 1 and negative 2. So the pair that adds to 3 are positive 1 and positive 2. So then we're going to use those as coefficients of the x term into the two empty spaces in the box. It doesn't matter which one goes where. You can swap them if you want because you will still get the same answer. And from here we're going to factor out the GCF of the bottom row. So 2x and 1 only have a 1 in common. The top row, they have an x in common. Now we're going to factor up, so the left column and the right column. 2x squared and 2x both have a 2 and they each have an x. And then our right column, 1x and 1, we can pull out a positive 1. You can always check back to make sure it multiplies correctly. So the number, or the binomial on the side and the binomial on the top are the two binomials that are factored. So there is our answer. Let's do another example together. So if we look at this, we can start by drawing our box. First term goes in the first box, last term goes in the last. Multiply those two numbers together. 3 times negative 4 gives you negative 12. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 12 and add to positive 4. So I made my list, and the two numbers that add to positive 4 are going to be negative 2 and positive 6. So again, we're going to use those numbers as coefficients of the x term. Again, it doesn't matter which one goes where as long as the correct signs go with the correct coefficient. If we factor out our bottom row, positive 6 and negative 4 are both divisible by 2. That's their GCF, and it's going to be positive because the 6x is positive. Our top row, 3x squared and negative 2x. 3 and negative 2 don't have anything in common, but they each have at least one x. If we look to factor up, our left column, both 3 and 6 are divisible by 3, and we can take out an x because one's x squared, the other's x. Our right column, negative 2 and negative 4, both divisible by 2, and it's negative because the sign in the box closest to it is negative. Again, you can always multiply it back out to make sure it matches up with what you have inside. So we've got x plus 2 times 3x minus 2. So here are two you tries. Please complete those for homework.